but in the blink of an eye, his determination. Acquiring skills had been a difficult and risky endeavour in his previous match, but now it seemed easier. Han Sung-yoon tried to enter the fourth floor chat room to see what people were discussing about the next trial. Inside the room, people were talking about the challenge in the next trial, which seemed to require teamwork. Han Sung-yoon's attention was piqued when he saw someone sharing information about the competition between hunters and the challenges in the next trial. It seemed like they would have to be willing to fight each other to win. Before long, Han Sung-yoon entered another dimension to meet more challengers. The challenge on the fourth floor was to reach the Goblin King within a set time. The penalty for failure was another death. Han Sung-yoon was teleported to the fourth floor and met two other people who would become his partners. Han Sung-yoon, who struggled with starting conversations, found himself sitting between two strangers. A girl named Lee Hyeon introduced herself as an E-rank hunter, while the burly man on Han Sung-yoon's right, Lee Sung-hoon, identified himself as a melee fighter with a D rank. Han Sung-yoon couldn't help but notice Sung-hoon's arrogance. When it was Han Sung-yoon's turn to introduce himself, he humbly admitted he wasn't a hunter, just a newcomer. This earned a mocking smile from Sung-hoon, who promptly told Han Sung-yoon to step aside and not get in his way. An argument began, with Sung-hoon looking down on Han Sung-yoon. Despite the ridicule, Han Sung-yoon tried to stand his ground, remembering the similar taunts he'd faced before. Inside the massive gate, they were instructed to complete the mission as a team, racing against another group. As soon as they entered, a horde of small goblins charged at them. Sung-hoon, standing at the front, struggled to fend them off alone. Frustrated, he ordered Han Sung-yoon to help, further irritating the young man. Han Sung-yoon took down the goblins around him effortlessly, leaving Sung-hoon grumbling about Hyeon not providing him with a buff. When Han Sung-yoon decided to assist the big man, he drove towards Sung-hoon. It was then that Hyeon noticed the goblins near her had all been defeated, and she was astonished to see the goblin carcasses scattered around. The goblins continued to press Sung-hoon, their diverse and dangerous attacks posing a serious threat. Just as a goblin's sword was about to strike Sung-hoon, Han Sung-yoon swiftly stepped forward, single-handedly taking down the goblins. Sung-hoon was amazed by Han Sung-yoon's agile and skillful movements. With the goblins completely defeated, Han Sung-yoon stood proudly in front of Sung-hoon. He firmly asked the big man to step back and stay away from him, as Sung-hoon's presence bothered him greatly at that moment. After saying that, Sung-yoon had a sharp and determined look. He dashed towards the remaining goblins, leaving his two successful comrades amazed at his bravery. He single-handedly defeated a whole herd of goblins. Sung-yoon earned the Goblin Hunter achievement. As all the goblins died, he absorbed their souls, something unique about him that his comrades hadn't seen before. He could absorb their souls without any problems, and it boosted his stats permanently. With every absorbed soul, his points increased, and he also gained a skill possessed by goblins, Field of View. This meant his vision became much better. Sung-yoon secretly smiled with pleasure at acquiring this new skill. He then approached his friends and declared that he would lead the team this time. Sun-hoon didn't argue, having witnessed Sung-yoon's exceptional skills in battle. With everyone's agreement, they ventured deeper into the area, but the deeper they went, the quieter it became. Hyeon was surprised at the unusual silence because goblins had been popping up earlier. Suddenly, Sung-yoon dashed off somewhere, catching his two colleagues off guard. They readied their stances, suspecting an enemy attack. To their relief, they only found goblin carcasses strewn around a fountain. Sung-yoon touched the blood of one goblin and realized they had just died. It seemed there was a fierce battle between goblins and other hunters somewhere nearby. Even though the goblins outnumbered their opponents, they lost to a single hunter. The man nonchalantly climbed onto a goblin's shoulders and expressed his weariness of killing goblins. Then he jumped and swiftly took out the goblins attacking his comrades. The hunter continued his onslaught until all the goblins lay defeated. His teammates could only compliment him from a safe distance, as they believed he preferred to work alone. He ordered one of his colleagues to open the entrance gate to the boss's headquarters on the fourth floor. But just as they were about to open the massive gate, a dimensional wall appeared, trapping them in the area. At that moment, a notification appeared from the system, revealing that they could only fight the boss after defeating the other team. They were taken aback by this sudden twist, especially when they saw Han Sung-yoon's team approaching. Han Sung-yoon glared at the opposing team, realizing that if they didn't want to meet their end, they had to take the risky step of eliminating the other team. They faced each other and prepared to start the fight. The first Sung-yoon dashed towards his opponent, determined to do anything to survive and prove himself. Before we continue, Let's take a moment to shout out DragonCF2XD, who commented, "Good video," on our Isekai 101 times video. Thanks for commenting. With swift moves, Sung Yoon shot towards the formidable hunter who was the leader of the opposing team. The hunter immediately ordered his team to use shields to create a protective wall. But Sung Yoon didn't back down. He leapt up and struck the shield with his sword until it shattered. The three opponents were in disarray, but Sung Yoon wasted no time. He launched towards his opponent, surprising them with consecutive attacks. His speed left his comrades speechless, their mouths hanging open. The tough hunter from the opposing team put up a fierce fight. They clashed, and Sung Yoon was amazed at his opponent's ability to fend off his agile movements. The opponent's shining eyes revealed their unique ability to read sword movements. But Han Sung Yoon wasn't about to give up. He threw his shield to block the man's vision, then swiftly closed in and stabbed him without hesitation. The system congratulated them on completing the special mission after the opponent fell. After the fight, Sung Yoon and his comrades stood among the fallen opponents. Hyeon noticed Sung Yoon's trembling arms and asked if he was okay, her face filled with gloom. Sung Yoon reassured her, though Hyeon suspected he must be in shock from having to kill humans. Sung Yoon instructed his comrades to go after the fourth floor boss, and they agreed without hesitation. With his own hands, Sung Yoon fought the massive goblin boss on the fourth floor. After defeating it, he calmly jumped down. Sun Hoon watched in awe, thinking that this young man was like a monster. As usual, the system congratulated them on completing the mission, displaying Sung Yoon's earned points on the hologram screen. Once back in the lobby, Sun Hoon said his goodbyes and left, leaving only Sung Yoon and Hyeon. Sung Yoon broke the silence by expressing his hope for Hyeon's safe return, but she remained silent. The girl suddenly told Han Sung Yoon that he only did what he had to when he killed their three rival hunters. It was something he had to do in a desperate moment, just like now. If Han Sung Yoon didn't want to do it, she said Hyeon would do it for them. Han Sung Yoon was surprised by her words, but they brought relief. Before leaving, Hyeon sent Han Sung Yoon a friend request and told him to find Lee Hyeon from the White Silver Guild when they arrived on Earth. After Hyeon left, Han Sung Yoon remained silent, torn by a difficult decision. He knew that absorbing the human souls of the three hunters he had defeated might change him, make him greedy and merciless. It could push him across a line he could never return from, but in the end, Han Sung Yoon decided to absorb their souls because he wanted to become stronger. He didn't want to kill humans, unless it was the only choice. There was no turning back now. Han Sung Yoon's dream of becoming a hunter had kindled a deep desire within him. The Tower of Trial had given him an opportunity, and he intended to make the most of it. He entered the lobby of the fifth floor after finishing the business of absorbing souls. Here, a new system was in place to judge each challenger's rank. Curious, Han Sung Yoon tried to find his name and check his rank. It didn't take long for names to appear on the list, showing the rankings of those who had conquered the fourth floor. Han Sung Yoon was surprised to find that he was ranked 16th. It was a relatively high rank. The system explained that those in the top 50 would be called pioneers, and they would gain an advantage on the 8th floor. If Han Sung Yoon could maintain his position in the top 50 until the 8th floor, he would obtain a special privilege called Halo. Satisfied with the information he had gathered, Han Sung Yoon immediately absorbed the souls of the enemies he had defeated. As he absorbed 4 souls at once, he felt like he was pushing the boundaries of what an ordinary human could achieve. Han Sung Yoon then buys a return stone. Using the stone, a person can return for 3 days. Sung Yoon uses the stone and he is finally returning to Earth. Sung Yoon falls through a purple wormhole and he wakes up back in his bed. He decides to go back to sleep but can't stand the smell and gets out of bed. He touches his equipment on the floor and confirms that he can bring back things from the tower to real life. Sung Yoon checks his phone and shoots a call to the director to finally take the hunter test. The director asks if he wants a refund, but Sung Yoon still wants to take the test. They reach a deal and Sung Yoon goes to take a shower. After getting out, Sung Yoon sees himself in the mirror and finds that his body has changed quite a bit. His body had undergone a remarkable transformation during his inexplicable journey. He stood taller, more muscular, and his features had become more chiseled. He hardly recognized himself, and it wasn't just his physical appearance that had changed. Sung Yoon felt an inner strength, a newfound confidence coursing through his veins. As he leaves the house, he passes his neighbor who realizes how handsome our protagonist is. However, as he ventured outside, he found that his usual mode of transportation, a taxi, was nowhere to be found. Sung Yoon hesitated for a moment before making a bold decision. He would run and jump to his destination. His enhanced physique made the task seem almost effortless, and he soared through the cityscape with exhilarating ease. Finally, he arrived at the designated testing facility, where Director Huang awaited him. Their eyes met, and Sung Yun was led into a room filled with monitors and equipment, where the test's difficulty level could be selected. Sung Yun remembers all of the trials he's gone through and how strong he is now. Thus, Sung Yun selects the hardest difficulty, level 10. This shocks the director, and Sung Yun's goal was set, to hunt a phoenix, a legendary and formidable creature. But the challenges were far from over. As the test began, the phoenix unleashed its powers, debuffing Sung Yun and reducing his movement by 25%. It was a formidable opponent, but Sung Yun's determination burned brighter than ever. What Sung Yun didn't know, however, was that Director Huang had a hidden agenda. He had sabotaged Sung Yun's weapon, a devious attempt to ensure that the young hunter would fail the test. But Sung Yun, with his newfound strength and unwavering resolve, stood in front of the monstrous phoenix without fear. A brilliant blue aura enveloped his body, and his eyes blazed with determination. This was the moment that would define him, a moment that had begun with an inexplicable fall through a purple wormhole, and had now led him to face his greatest challenge yet. With every step forward, he defied the odds, ready to prove that even against the most formidable of foes, his spirit and newfound power would prevail. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.